the people that try to make you scared, you know, and fight back.
Pedro Pascal's relationship with Disney began as a golden partnership. The studio positioned him as the centerpiece of Marvel's grand post-Endgame redemption arc, casting him as Reed Richards in the Fantastic Four reboot. On paper, it was a perfect match, one of Hollywood's most in-demand stars, fronting one of Marvel's most anticipated projects. But behind the cameras, a storm was brewing. The problems began to surface at Comic-Con. On stage, the cast appeared harmonious. The audience saw bright smiles, smooth banter, and all the hallmarks of Marvel's tightly managed PR machine. But just hours before the panel, Pascal was reportedly pulled aside by Marvel's publicity team.
We continue making Fantastic Four movies or not, or the characters continue, I know that we're going to be like friends for life. Whether they like it or not, they're never getting rid of me.
The reason was his increasingly scrutinized public behavior with co-star Vanessa Kirby. Videos circulating online showed moments of lingering touches, close body language, and affectionate gestures that some fans interpreted as crossing a line, particularly given Kirby's pregnancy during press events. One set of red carpet photos became a focal point. In them, Pascal's hand rested low on Kirby's hip, prompting an immediate wave of commentary across social media. Reddit threads analyzed the images frame by frame. Twitter posts accused him of inappropriate conduct, and TikTok creators stitched clips into a running pattern of behavior. The backlash was loud enough to push Disney into a direct conversation with Pascal. That conversation was anything but smooth. According to insiders, when Marvel executives advised him to dial back the public displays, his response was explosive. He told them he would rather be removed from the sequel than be controlled, going so far as to suggest scrapping the next Fantastic Four entirely. It was an ultimatum that caught the boardroom off guard. This wasn't a struggling actor clinging to relevance. Pascal was one of their most bankable stars, already carrying the cultural weight of The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. From that point forward, tensions escalated rapidly. Pedro began questioning not only the handling of the situation, but the creative direction of the franchise itself. He expressed dissatisfaction with the script and the environment on set, framing it as no longer creatively healthy. This was a sharp turn from his earlier public enthusiasm, when he described joining the MCU as a dream come true. Marvel, in turn, began contingency planning. Internally, discussions about replacing him quietly began, with alternate script drafts shifting the spotlight towards Sue Storm and Johnny Storm. The logic was simple. If Pedro walked, the narrative could be adjusted so that Reed Richards' absence felt like part of the story rather than a glaring hole. Meanwhile, public sentiment fractured. Some fans were disappointed in Pascal's behavior, pointing to the viral clips as proof of unprofessionalism. Others sided with him, framing his resistance as a stand against corporate overreach and the creative stagnation of the MCU. One viral comment summed up this view. The MCU had become a fast food franchise, and Pedro Pascal was the first to throw the meal back. Within Marvel's own walls, the pressure mounted. Executives debated whether to limit his screen time in upcoming crossover films, particularly Avengers Doomsday. According to multiple sources, reshoots were quietly restructured to reduce his presence in pivotal moments. Marketing teams were instructed to rotate his promotional material out of primary placements across Marvel's official channel. By this stage, the relationship between Pedro and Marvel had shifted from mutual benefit to silent combat. Every new photo, clip, or public appearance became another potential flashpoint. The whispers from Comic-Con lingered, literally and figuratively, and attempts to sanitize the public narrative only amplified the sense that something was deeply fractured behind the scenes. The moment that encapsulated the breakdown came during Marvel's own Comic-Con livestream.
There's also this notorious clip of Pedro Pascal reaching out for the hand of his Fantastic Four co-star Vanessa Kirby with the excuse that he finds it soothing to touch someone because of his social anxiety.
While the cast was engaged in light banter, Pascal leaned in close to Kirby and spoke privately. The body language was unmistakable. She leaned slightly away, and he remained close for several seconds. When the official recap video was posted on Marvel's YouTube channel, that segment was conspicuously missing. But the internet had already saved and reposted it, ensuring it would circulate beyond the studio's control. Marvel's next move was textbook damage control. More interviews, more cheerful promotion, and more of the found family narrative they'd been pushing since the project's announcement. But when Pascal appeared for those follow-up interviews, he was visibly different. The charm was mute. The corporate talking points were replaced with a cool detachment. In one exchange, his comments about the role came across as weary acknowledgement rather than excitement. The subtext was clear. The relationship between Pedro Pascal and Marvel Studios was no longer repairable in the way the public had been led to believe. Pedro Pascal's quiet storm had now turned into a full-blown hurricane behind Marvel's closed doors. The confrontation at Comic-Con had left executives scrambling, and the fallout was becoming impossible to contain. In the days that followed, Marvel's PR machine shifted into overdrive, scrubbing clips, redirecting the narrative, and cutting Pascal from marketing in ways subtle enough to avoid public suspicion, yet deliberate enough to signal an internal rift. Fans began noticing his absence from promotional rotations. His solo interviews disappeared from YouTube playlists, his character shots faded from official Instagram posts, and TikTok edits featuring his lines vanished altogether. The shift was so sudden, so calculated, it fueled the very speculation Marvel had hoped to bury. Meanwhile, insiders whispered about creative realignment, the euphemism Marvel used to quietly halt pre-production on Fantastic Four 2 just weeks after Comic-Con. Officially, it was about fine-tuning the script. Unofficially, it was about rewriting the story to minimize Pascal's role in case he made good on his threat to walk. The whispers got louder when reports surfaced that one new draft sidelined Reed Richards entirely, trapping him in a multiversal collapse so the rest of the team could take center stage. This wasn't just narrative flexibility, it was contingency planning. Behind closed doors, names were already being floated for potential replacements, and one in particular raised eyebrows: Joseph Gordon-Levitt. While no deal was finalized, the fact Marvel was even considering a recast before cameras rolled again spoke volumes. But Pedro still had a card Marvel feared: his contract's exit clause, a clause that allowed him to walk away without penalty if substantial creative changes were made without his approval or if his public image was undermined. After the Comic-Con edits,
the stories and keep expressing yourself and keep fighting to be who you are. And I don't know, the people that try to make you scared, you know, and fight back.
Clipped interviews and the quiet removal from press duties, that clause had teeth. And Pedro knew it. Sources say his agents made it clear to Marvel that every move to sideline him was being documented. In a rare move for a star of his caliber, Pascal began pulling back entirely from the Marvel machine. He declined multiple promotional appearances, citing exhaustion, though insiders say the truth was closer to resentment. Marvel had courted him as their savior, their fresh face to reboot fan loyalty, and now they were treating him like a liability, adding fuel to the fire. Online discourse turned volatile. Old interviews resurfaced, showing Pascal's tactile nature with colleagues. Moments once perceived as charming were now reframed as inappropriate. Viral edits, Twitter threads, and TikTok dissections piled on, each one amplifying the controversy. Marvel's response: silence. No public show of unity. For a studio that had once put Pascal on every talk show couch and magazine cover, the sudden withdrawal spoke louder than words. The strategy was clear: let the storm burn itself out while quietly reshaping the franchise without him. But Pedro wasn't playing along. In cryptic Instagram posts,
The world is starting to notice Pedro Pascal's pesky habit of inappropriately touching his female colleague.
he dropped lines like, "Some people want you to shrink to make them comfortable. Don't." Without tagging Marvel, the message still landed exactly where it was meant to. Insiders described the tension as irreparable, with one executive allegedly saying in a meeting, "If he wants to burn the bridge, we'll let him light the match." But the bridge wasn't just between Pedro and Marvel, it stretched into the entire MCU's Phase 5 plan. Fantastic Four was supposed to be the reset, the emotional anchor leading directly into Avengers Doomsday. Now, with its lead actor openly feuding with the studio, the foundation was crumbling. Marvel's solution was predictable: shift the spotlight to other cast members, emphasize Sue and Johnny's arcs, and start seeding multiverse loopholes to justify any sudden change in Reed Richards' face. To fans, it would be another creative twist. To insiders, it was corporate damage control masquerading as storytelling. By this point, Pascal had already started planting seeds for life beyond Marvel. Industry leaks revealed he was in advanced talks with HBO for a Chilean historical drama and negotiating with Netflix for a dystopian sci-fi thriller with biting corporate satire. Projects that not only distanced him from superhero spandex, but also gave him the chance to take veiled shots at the very system he was walking away from. And Marvel knew it. They could replace him in the script, they could erase him from marketing, but they couldn't stop him from telling his own story somewhere else. The clock was ticking, and every day without resolution made one thing clearer: Pedro Pascal wasn't bluffing, he was preparing his exit in real time. The breaking point came not with a leaked memo or a viral outburst, but with a casting announcement Marvel thought would go unnoticed. Buried in a late Friday press release, the studio confirmed that a younger Reed Richards variant would appear in an upcoming Disney Plus special, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. On paper, it was just another multiverse gimmick. In reality, it was Marvel's insurance policy, a way to test audience reception to a potential replacement without admitting anything was wrong. The internet caught on instantly. Fan forums lit up with side-by-side comparisons, hashtags like #NotMyRead trended, and gossip accounts claimed Marvel was soft-launching their post-Pascal era. Inside Marvel, the decision landed like a grenade. Pedro's team saw it as a direct provocation, a public signal that the studio was moving on. Within days, he was out of the group chats. His access to early scripts revoked, and his name suspiciously absent from scheduling memos. It wasn't a firing that would spark legal battles, but it was a slow, deliberate freezing out. In one particularly telling move, Marvel released a new Fantastic Four concept poster, featuring only 3 team members, leaving a conspicuous gap where Reed should have been. The official line: creative tease. The unofficial reality: damage control in plain sight. Fans split into warring camps. One side accused Marvel of disrespecting an actor they had practically begged to join the franchise. The other argued Pedro's public defiance had made him impossible to work with. The debate wasn't just about one role, it became a referendum on Marvel's increasingly corporate grip on its stars. Industry pundits pointed out the irony. Marvel had once thrived on actors who embodied their roles so completely that the two were inseparable. Now, the studio seemed intent on proving no one was indispensable, not even their supposed golden boy. But Marvel underestimated just how much Pascal's charisma had welded fans to him. The moment Joseph Gordon-Levitt appeared in a leaked costume test, the backlash was immediate. Memes mocked the discount Reed Richards, fan art erased him entirely, and a Change.org petition to keep Pascal in the role racked up tens of thousands of signatures in days. This wasn't just loyalty, it was the fandom calling Marvel's bluff, and Pedro noticed. Without ever mentioning Marvel by name, he began liking tweets defending him, following fan accounts leading the charge, and reposting art of himself as Reed on Instagram stories. Behind the scenes, executives debated whether to bring him back into the fold for one last PR push before filming resumed. But trust had already evaporated. Those who knew Pedro best said he had no interest in salvaging the relationship. His priority was leaving on his terms, not theirs. By then, he had already secured a major streaming deal, rumored to rival his Marvel contract in both pay and creative control. It was the ultimate checkmate: walk away from a billion-dollar franchise without losing money, without losing status, and without giving them the satisfaction of firing him. When Marvel finally announced a creative restructuring of Fantastic Four, they avoided naming Pascal entirely. Instead, they promised a bold new direction and fresh storytelling opportunities, corporate speak for rewriting the character out. Fans who had been following every breadcrumb didn't need translation. Pedro Pascal's Reed Richards was over before it had even truly begun. In the end, it wasn't an explosive scandal that ended it, but a quiet, calculated erasure. Marvel would spin it as strategic. Pedro would frame it as liberation. And in the court of public opinion, the verdict was still out on who had really won. But one thing was certain: the story wasn't over. Not for Pedro, and not for the Marvel machine he'd just walked away from.